at a point in 68 or 69 after the ride. And one thing about Debbie's house, she did have the one line, as far as I know, the one telephone line, but they had one in the kitchen, and this was like state of the art. They had one near the bedrooms. And so you had probably the same phone number, but you could pick it up in the kitchen or you could pick it up in the bedroom. Whereas in most houses, we had the little black, stupid-looking phone with a rotary dial, and it was right there between the kitchen and the dining room. That's it. It was amazing that they had one in the front and one in the back. But if somebody else picked that phone up and got hold of all of the sisters, like I said, the sisters were beautiful. They're already out on their own. Okay. He could have sold them a bill of goods saying, I scared those little kids. Yes, I did, because they had no business hitchhiking. And then a week or so later, when I came back from Daytona, I went down to Kathleen's, and there was a wisteria tree we called the bee tree, and between Debbie's house and Kathleen's house. And I said, I've written in the diary. And Debbie had a ballistic fit. She says, you can't have it in the diary. Your mom will read the diary, and we'll get in big trouble. He displayed a gun, and we were hitchhiking. We'll get in big trouble. So she made me rip that page out. I still have the diary, and from the diary, I can read. That's how I figured out we went to Daytona right after. She made me stick it down this fence, but I said, I'll put it down here. So then I can read, about, I even said, we hollered at a guy and called him naked and pretended to hitchhike, but we ran away. And then behind of it said, I tasted vodka. And then it's a guy following me around in Daytona, which I don't even want to go there because, with Stanos, who knows. I seem to have this quality that I run across serial killers from time to time. I think I even ran into Donald Smith one time in the 70s. Oh, anyway, that's when I worked at JSO, but that's a whole different story. It is possible. But the Ted Bundy thing, and that's another thing. Later down the road, when all this stuff started happening, I was working shift work at JSO. And I didn't have my own newspaper because I had car payment, I had rent, right? Telephone payment. I didn't have a newspaper at the time, but I figured I could read my mom and dad's on the weekends or whatever. So if in 75 of May, I started JSO as a dispatcher, and you worked 3 to 11, 11 to 7, 7 to 3. So newspaper, I had enough to learn. I wasn't reading the paper, so I also was Army reservist at a point during them trials and stuff. But anyway, in 75 was at JSO. Didn't read the paper as much. And down here, it might have been a blip. And here's the rub, is I knew him as Theodore Bundy. And if you said, what is a nickname for Theodore Bundy? I said, Theo. Edward Kennedy was Ted. So I wouldn't have said, oh, Ted. I wouldn't have even thought that. I didn't know that. It's not a name that I'm familiar with. So if they had a short article said in the newspaper somewhere in 75, I didn't see it, didn't know it. I know Charlie Hill worked at JSO, and I know one of the cops said, all they found was a jawbone. I thought they were talking about somebody that went out in the ocean and drowned, because sometimes when the person drowns in the ocean, the sharks, crabs, barracudas, and different animals tear at that thing until there's just bones left sometimes. All right, I think that was part 4. Going back to Riviera at that apartment, so I remember thinking, okay, we need to get out of here. Our bikes are not locked, and something was making me, the way he was bouncing around the corner of the room, and I couldn't say it was the same guy. He was pretty tall, slender, but I can't say it was the same guy. I just thought it was somebody they were breaking up with. But physical attributes were very similar. Dark hair, tan slacks, white turtleneck or something. I don't know why he didn't want us to look in the refrigerator. All right, bye.